start, embarking on an agile transformation can be both inspiring and stressful, as the prospect of embracing a new way of working brings a sense of uncertainty and the unknown. With CISART, your agile transformation journey starts with a human touch, fostering a compassionate and collaborative process. Our comprehensive consultancy and training services go beyond mere guidance, as we empathetically understand your journey and prioritize your needs at every step. Beyond consultancy and training, we at CISART extend our services to providing outsourcing solutions, connecting you with our highly skilled agile coaches to drive your transformation journey. Don't let uncertainty hold you back. Take the first step towards agile excellence. Get in touch with us today for a free consultation. Unlock the happiness of agility with CISART.
Good evening. Hi to everyone. Welcome to our CSART webinar. And my name is Ayşe Turunç, and I will be the host tonight with our special guest, Cesario Ramos. Welcome, Cesario.
Thank you. Welcome, you too. Happy to be here.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm just arrived in Lisbon. It's very hot here, so I'm drinking some water.
Okay. Okay, so Cesario, will thank you for your time here to be with us, because I think it's a very special moment for us, for the agile followers of you. Let me a little bit introduce you, and then I will give the microphone to you to introduce yourself. Cesario is a professional Scrum trainer and certified less trainer and a thought leader uh, to learn about everything that he's on the pathway to, and he's still learning as we do in this path of agility. Now, today, we will be with him to think and learn about his new book. Actually, it's not new. It's released 1 year ago, right? Your latest book. It's designing agile organizations that we have in our hands, and as CSART, we are trying to implement the things that we see in the book. So, Cesare, thank you for these all generous sharings from you.
Great.
Uh, so before starting, I would like to a little bit give information about CSART to ones who are new in this webinar. As CSART, we are now as a systemic agility implementation team. We are trying to do systemic transformation and change management in the companies. And we are in Turkey, in Istanbul, in Berlin, and Stockholm. And you can reach our website from CSART Consulting every time here for the followers. And this live webinar is now on live in LinkedIn and YouTube, and you can find it on the records in the social media after this session. So this was our introduction I wanted to do with Cesario. Thank you for your patience. So let's start to know you. who are you and how did you come to that point? We can listen from you a little bit introduction, Cesario, for the ones who doesn't know you.
Okay, thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Cesario Ramos. I'm actually based in Holland, in the Netherlands, and I have a background in mathematics and computing science. And
Mhm,
like many, I think, back in the day, I started as a programmer in the 90s,
mhm,
and yeah, was very enthusiastic about XP. And at that time, XP came together with Scrum, and I rolled from working with teams, programming in teams, to working with Scrum and XP and teams, and it all grew from there. I remember having my first Scrum course by Ken Swaber in Amsterdam, and it was
mhm,
like life changing,
mhm,
and
mhm,
it was like amazing. Back in 2004, I think, or 2003, around that time.
mhm,
And after that, I just got enthusiastic about working with teams, working with companies, and the whole agile community. It was like a very fresh breath of air at the time, and it all came from there. I started working with companies, and I started learning how to do things and writing it up in my slides and in books and so on.
mhm, mhm,
And yeah, and eventually the book we're talking about was is called Creating Agile Organizations, and it is the result of working for many years. I think 12 to 15 years with companies, and just yeah, all the best things we found, we wrote it down in a book, and
mhm.
I'm happy that you are reading it and that you are actually also implementing it. It's very
Exactly.
very very
Trying to do that.
very very nice to hear. Yeah.
Great. So I know that you are planning to do a designing agile, creating agile organizations course in Berlin on 6 and 7 November, right? As far as I know.
Yes, we are planning one. Last week I was in München doing one, and
Mhm,
the next one is planned in Berlin,
mhm,
which is
mhm.
I was in Berlin also 3 weeks ago at the LESS conference, and so I'm happy to be there again in the beginning of November for a 2 day designing agile organizations course. Yeah.
Great, great news for the ones who want to be in that course. And they can read the book, but the course will be different for everyone, I think. So, what was the triggering point for you, Cesario, to write this book? And what is the story behind it?
Mhm. Yeah, the story of this book is that we had been working with all these companies for these many years, and actually, for me personally, it was when there was a new problem or a new organization we were working with, uh, we had to do things that we did before, and then we had to say, oh yes, I remember back then in that customer we did this kind of workshop. Let's try to use that workshop again, and let's tailor it a little bit for this customer. But then, oh, where is that workshop? And then
Hmm.
we had to search like in the thousands of slides, and that was one of the reasons that we would say, well, if we had everything nicely written up in a book, that
Uh-huh.
would then make it easier for us to find
Mhm.
things that we could do more easily. And the other reason was that we were just forgetting a lot of stuff, and and we tried to write it in small blogs and small articles. But that was also a reason. If we just write it more formally and more extensively in a book, then we won't forget, because when we forget, we can just read it again
Mhm, mhm.
in our own book. And
Yeah.
for me, that those were actually the main two reasons to write it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first customers were you with Ilya, right? Pavlochenko. So you were the first customers of that book.
Yes, yes.
And who should be the other customers? Who should read these books? This kind of books, actually.
Hmm.
Whom do you recommend that?
That's a very 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 good question. Um, when we wrote it, it was 600 pages initially, and the publisher didn't
Mm.
like that, so it
Mhm.
had to be fewer pages, and we reshuffled it lots of times, and eventually it 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 we made it in two parts, two different parts. So there's this first part of the book. It's called
Mhm.
the first part, and it's about, it's all about concepts. It's mainly about organization design, agile organization design, with systems, with how to
Mhm.
approach a change, but also guidelines about how to design an agile organization, how to make, how to gather data and then make decisions about what
Mhm.
works best in your context. Now, that first part, that's for the target audience is really senior managers that are, thinking about, or are in the middle of redesigning an organization, in the middle
Mhm.
of transforming it, and they want to lead it. They want to,
Mhm.
they want to understand options that they can choose from.
Mhm.
That's mainly the first part of the book. And then there's the second part of the book, which is very practical. It's full of guidelines. It's full of example workshops. It's full of stories and techniques you can use,
Mhm.
and that's more focused on, like, the people who are actually doing a change, or who are actually coaching the change, so they can get a lot of practical insights and practical ideas how to work with product ownership, how to launch a product group, how to launch teams, how to work with senior management.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's very practical, and therefore the audience are agile coaches, actually.
Mhm. I see many sincere sharings from you. For example, a workshop didn't work, and you go to the your room and redesign a workshop. These kind of things we cannot see in the books. These kind of case studies. So I really appreciate the book a lot, and I haven't finished yet, but go back and back to check what you have told when I'm working with the teams.
Hmm.
Thank you for the all the sharing. So I'm checking my questions. So maybe I can start with what makes an organization adaptive to change, Cesario. So with baby steps, let's start that. What are the anti-patterns that prevents to be agile for the a company?
Okay.
These are two questions, I know. So you can
Yes.
start wherever you
So
want.
what makes an organization agile? So we like the definition of a friend of mine. Unfortunately, he passed away. Mike Beadle, and
Mm, yeah.
his definition we like a lot, and it's about, that the organization is able to change direction, you know,
Mm,
to work on what's most valuable to them,
mhm,
while creating also maximum customer value. So I think there are three important things in there. Like, we are maximizing customer value. That's one thing an agile organization does.
mm,
But it's also maximizing impact for itself, for the organization itself, because it can adapt and pick up the most important work that comes from the market. And in order to do that, yeah, a lot of things need to be in place in order to actually, be able to allocate, for example, if you have 10 teams, let's say, whatever teams, marketing teams, development teams, it doesn't matter. And the most important thing is, to focus on, to develop this new product or this new feature, let's say, relating to artificial intelligence, because that's currently super cool. Then if that company is adaptable, they can put as many as needed of those teams to work on that
mhm,
new challenge. And it's
mhm,
not the case that, they can only put two teams there, and the other teams will say, well, I don't know, I don't have time, I'm working on something else, I don't understand it. You see, that would not be agile. Adaptable would be, well, I can put as many as required on the most important work.
mhm,
That would be one way to think
mm.
about that.
To have these teams adaptable, what should be the baby step when you enter in a company and they say that we need to change and I know this is a big question, but what are the baby steps that you mostly in your 3 or 4 steps you have
Hmm. To
to
so
make them adaptable, make them accept the change for the company? People,
mhm.
people work.
Yeah, so I think there are some levels to this question.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are the steps at the organizational level? Um, the steps involve a lot of things. They involve, for example, budgeting. They involve how do you hand out, what's the policy around giving money to initiatives? Is it possible to? Is it easy? How easy is it to reinvest money that that you want to invest in something else because you learned something?
Hmm.
So, or is the budget that you can spend, is that fixed upfront? And is, for example, the functionality that you need to develop, is that fixed upfront, right? Are we focused on outputs, right? Or can we work with outcomes, and can we easily switch between the things that we want to offer our customers? For example, the things we want to develop. How flexible is that process?
Hmm.
That is an important aspect in becoming an adaptable organization. Your HR policies play an important role. Like, do they stimulate, for example, team focus? Do they stimulate cooperation between teams chasing a separate goal, chasing the same goal? Do they stimulate that people develop multiple skills and keep
Hmm.
reacting to changing technology and learning about that? Or do they focus on single skills and single goals and single targets?
Hmm.
This also is a organizational question that will impact your adaptability. um, um, and of course, then there are the processes that you use, and how you divide the work into departments and teams, which greatly influences the adaptability of your organization. I can give an example of a problem of departments.
Hmm.
Um, there is this concept called coupling, functional coupling between departments. And that means that if two departments, let's say Department A and B, if they are coupled,
Hmm.
then it will be very hard for one department to achieve its goals, and also the other one to achieve its goals at the same time. Stronger if when Department A wants to achieve its goals, it will make it harder for Department B to achieve its goals. And there can be many examples of that. And a classic example is for example, IT. If you have an IT department and you have a sales department or a business department, and one is a cost center and one is a profit center, right?
Hmm.
Then the business or sales will try to sell a lot of stuff as much as they can, to make their targets, and then it's then handed over to the IT to develop it.
Hmm.
You see,
Hmm.
but the IT's goal is not to sell a lot of stuff. IT's goal is, for example, to be cost efficient and to be stable, and to don't spend too much money. But then these two are conflicting, you see, because these targets, these functions of these two departments are coupled. So they are actually fighting each other in the organization, causing a lot of rework, a lot of coordination costs, a lot of planning, a lot of meetings, and that slows you down as an organization, making you less able to react, less able to adapt. So this is like from the organization perspective.
Hmm. Hmm.
From the team perspective, I think it's more common to in agile space, what this what adaptability is about. Uh, and I like to say it in the following way. I think I said it already. If you have 10 teams developing a product, a software product, for example, and the most important thing is to work on AI, then I want all of those teams, or as many as required to work on AI, to be able to work on AI. And I don't want to say, for example, that only 2 or 3 can work on the AI problem, while the other 7 cannot, because they don't have the skills, they don't know about that technology, they don't know the code, they don't know the components, they have other work to do. Well, that would limit adaptability. So that would be an example of
Mhm.
adaptability at the team level, that all the teams in perfection can work on whatever is the most important.
Mhm, mhm. Having the same goal, sharing the goal together, I think this is the
Yeah.
most of the things that I heard from you.
Yes.
So with this answer, you gave most of the answers to me from my questions.
Okay.
I want to go to audience questions. One of them is, yeah, they are saying hi to everyone. Mustafa is asking, actually, he's one of our coaches. I want to hear Cesario's remarks about relationship between alignment and autonomy in terms of leadership and culture. Yeah, this is the question that
About so
he wants.
the
Mhm.
relationship between alignment and autonomy
Autonomy.
in terms of leadership
Leadership,
and culture.
yes.
So this is a big question, but I'll just
Big.
start talking, and then maybe if I don't answer the question, you can maybe rephrase or ask a follow-up question.
Okay.
So auto- what we want is autonomous teams. At least that's what we agile people say we want.
Yeah.
And that's true. We want autonomous teams, but only, if, they are actually doing something useful. So if they're only autonomous, but they're not working on something useful, then it's not
Yeah.
very good, a good path to go down to. Now, if your product is one team, and that is a real product, like it makes real impact for your
Hmm.
company and so on, then okay, having autonomous teams is a good thing. But if you have many of those teams, then as you said, we want them to, if they work on the same service or the same product, we want them to be aligned, chasing the same goals, chasing the same targets. And with that must come a reduction in autonomy. It must be that.
Hmm.
So autonomy is reduced because you're part of a larger whole. And so the goal is not to have autonomous teams in large scale. The goal is to have the teams be tuned to each other.
Hmm.
No, we want them to be reacting to each other all the time, but going in the same direction. Um, and and that's not the same as autonomy. So another way to say this is to say, if I have 10 teams that work on the same like product, then we want them to be like aligned on the goal or aligned on the product backlog. If we do Scrum, you see,
Mhm,
that's what
mhm,
we want them to be aligned on, or coupled, as we call it. We want them to be coupled at that, but we want them to be strongly dependent on the code level, so that they can work across all the components, all the places required, all the places in the code required to make something useful for the end customer. So they are very dependent on code, but they are aligned at the goal level, at the product backlog level. But let me, how can I phrase this slowly? The teams themselves are uncoupled or loosely coupled.
hmm,
Let me tell you what that means. That means that if I have 10 teams, for example, then I could easily replace one team with the other. So I could replace any team with any other team. So the teams are replaceable. So imagine that you can do that I can replace any team with any other team, right? Then that would mean, that if one team falls off,
Mhm.
any other team can pick up that team's work because the teams are replaceable. And that also means that any team can pick up anything which is on top of the backlog, because it doesn't matter which team picks it up. The teams are replaceable.
Mhm.
Okay, so coming back to the question on autonomy and alignment, so this is
Mm.
about 3 levels, you see. So we want them to be autonomous in the sense that they are replaceable. They can pick up a work and then do it by themselves, independent from the others. Uh, uh, but they are strongly coupled at the goal level, and, which is like we chase the same targets or the same product backlog, and they are dependent upon each other at the code level if it's a software product, because they program across one big shared code base. That's I think the 3 ideas to take into account when thinking about autonomy and alignment.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not
Thank you
that
so
it's
much.
not, it's not that simple. It's not a simple
Yeah.
two axis graph.
It's a long story. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Thank you for giving that answer. I think Mustafa is okay with that. Yeah. Are you okay with water and your
I'm okay.
soda?
This is my
You're
second
okay?
bottle already. Yes.
It seems so hot there.
It is very hot.
Okay. Now, yeah, this is Suhan's question actually. Also, he's a fan of you, and he's writing from WhatsApp that, yeah, I like him so much, and the ideas are really like mine. And his question is, he asked me, he wanted me to ask you on Tuesday, is it always achievable to do a product organization? What are the challenges of changing a traditional structure to a product organization? A big question again. Sorry.
Okay. So always, when there are words like always, never,
Mhm.
all these absolute words, then well, that's the answer is yeah, probably
No,
not.
no.
It's never
Uh-huh.
always, never
Yeah.
always, all these things. So and a product, and another thing I noticed in the question
Hmm.
that I want to elaborate on,
Yeah.
that you can be, if you want to be an adaptable organization or an agile organization, you don't have to be a product organization. So
Hmm.
you can be like there are 3 different focuses that companies can take. Usually they take a mix, but let's just keep it simple now and talk about 3 of them, the 3 that are important. And one of them is the product focus, as this question is about.
Yeah.
And but there are 2 others, which are this: you can have an operation focus,
Mhm.
and you can have a customer focus.
Okay.
And these are 3 different focuses. And agility means different things in each of these focuses. Now, in product focus, most of us know and work with the product focus, where new features are important, and first to market is important, time to market is important, deep skills is important, new technology and being first, and being able to develop that new technology earlier than your competitors, like, it's
Mhm.
about product revenue,
What's product for you, Cesario?
I'm sorry.
I.
That
What's
that's
product
that's
for you? You have a very nice explanation of product.
that's
What is,
product focus.
yeah.
Yeah.
What
But
is product? If we can explain from your side, what
what the
should we
product is.
understand? Yeah, what is a product? Everybody has a product and
Okay.
thinking, but what is product for your side?
Okay. So then we must come back to the rest of the question later.
Right.
It's okay.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
It's okay.
So a product is, I like to use the ideas from Steve Jobs about what a
Mhm.
product is. And there are actually a couple of characteristics that you can expect a product to have. And one of them is that it must have users.
Yeah.
And these users must be like, like you and me, humans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if the thing you work on doesn't have any users that are humans, it's probably not a product. Probably. Very unlikely. So then next to users, it must have some kind of business model. It must have some kind of way to make money or prevent money from being lost. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it must have users and this business model. Then it must have, some kind of, it must offer some kind of solution to a problem or satisfy some needs for these users so that they are willing, to pay for it and use
Right.
it.
Right.
Okay. And then the last thing that it must have is it must have it must offer this functionality. So it must have some kind of features. So if the thing you work on doesn't have any users, doesn't have any like way to make money of it or prevent money from being lost, doesn't solve any problems or any needs of users, and doesn't offer any features, then it's not a product. It's what it is. What is it then, you might ask? Well,
Mm.
it is part of. It's a
Mhm.
part of a product.
Okay.
Very probably.
Probably it's because in the companies, product owners are a little bit confused about the product, what we say about product, maybe.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think that yeah, the product definition should be like that in everybody's mind, so that they can evaluate their product, right? To go
Yes.
through a product organization. So in a product organization, the CEO is a product, right? So product owner, right?
I'm
So the,
sorry.
in a product organization, CEO should be the product owner.
The CEO.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
When I
depends.
think about it,
Depends on how big the organization is.
mm,
Usually, if it's a small organization, maybe like it's 40 people or 80 people or 100 people, maybe it is. But if
okay,
it's a large organization like 3,000 people, it's very
yeah,
unlikely that the
yeah,
CEO is the product
okay,
owner. Yeah,
okay.
I don't
So,
think so. No.
for a company with hundreds of people and they are producing products, so a website or a product for customers. So,
Hmm.
is it like Suha's question? What are the challenges to change to a product company style of working when they need? What are the challenges and what do you advise them?
What are the challenges?
Mhm.
So there could be many challenges, of course, depending on what type of company you are. But one challenge is that if you are like a company with many teams, one challenge is to identify all the parts
Mhm.
of this product, meaning all the teams, for example, and the systems, and grouping them together in one group. That would be a challenge.
Yeah, big
Because
challenge.
what can happen is what usually happens is that in order to make an end-to-end feature, you will need teams from different departments.
Mhm.
But if you want to be like more like an adaptable organization developing a product, you must find a way to bring these pieces from different departments into one group so that they can work together. That's one of the challenges. The other
Exactly.
challenge is that how you handle budgeting. So you cannot have project budgeting anymore, for example. You must have
Hmm.
some other kind of spending that money. It must be more investment related. That you can say, okay, how much money do we expect? Do we want to invest in this type of product this year? Depending on what we expect in return, depending on what we expect in market growth, and then have the product owner, if you do Scrum, but the person who actually understands the market very
Mhm.
well and understands how to develop a product for that market, let that person, be more of an entrepreneur and making decisions where to put the money depending on what he or she learns during, the year.
Mhm.
So we have two issues here. getting the all the skills and systems in one group, and having this person who can make the decisions and can make also the investment decisions
Mhm.
about what to build. I think these are two big challenges. I can go on. There are many more
Yeah,
challenges, but these are
yeah,
two big ones. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so what I see is among my question, what should be the key attributes of a change agent when they are working with leaders? So these
Oh,
are, challenges when working with leaders. What do
working
you
with
advise
leaders.
us? Yeah.
I think a change agent, if you work with leaders or not, uh, these skills are more or less the same.
Hmm.
Um, I think human touch is a
Hmm.
very important skill. Being able to build rapport, being able to really understand what
Hmm.
this person is coming from, what his issues are, what his
Hmm.
challenges are, how you
Hmm.
can help him. Being able to show respect in that sense. I think that's an important step. If you work with teams, it's super important. If you work with leadership, it's super important to have this human connection. That you have this relationship of trust, that you can
Right.
discuss things
Okay.
with each other.
Exactly.
And
Thank you.
the other one is, I think, can you talk and can you understand can you talk their language? Can you talk developer language or team language, or can you talk leadership language? That's very important also.
Okay. Okay. No problem.
I need, if you excuse me 1 second, I need to get a new bottle of water.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
One
no
second.
problem.
One
No,
second.
no problem. So I see the questions here. Ule, I will ask the question that you have written in a while. So Mustafa writes that after all this question, what problem does this or that framework solve? I think that's the first question we need to answer. Okay, it's an answer for Ule, I think. So there is a chat in the question comment parts. So I try to read them when you're away. You can go on with the key attributes for the change agent when working with leaders if you want.
Okay, so human touch and then understanding their language and speaking
Right.
their language, that's very important.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And then especially with leaders, is to understand. This depends, of course, what level these leaders are, but I'm talking about senior leaders. To understand that implementing a framework is not the goal. So
mm-hmm,
nobody cares about the framework. Nobody cares what the Scrum Guide says, or what the rules of the framework are. So you're not there to implement the framework. You're there to implement help him develop a better company. And he believes, or she believes, that in order to be successful, my company or my department or needs to be able to do this and this. They need to be able to ship faster, or have more quality, or have higher customer intimacy, or be
mm-hmm,
able to learn faster and put what they learn back in the plan to do new experiments. That's those are the capabilities, as we call it, that they want to develop.
mm-hmm,
And whatever framework or technique or approach works in that environment, in that culture, that's uh, uh, how you can help them. And that's not by yeah, but safe, or framework X says you should do that. No, if you say
mm.
that, I think most senior leaders will not enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. You cannot find the same language with them, and they are getting lost, and you lose at the end, right? As a
Yes,
change agent.
absolutely.
Great. So, are you okay now? I will continue if you
Please.
want.
Yes.
Yeah, I see a question here. How important are frameworks in agility? Like you mentioned before, it's not framework that you told. Do you
Mhm.
prefer less? How to implement the agile mindset in an organizational design? So it's also a big question.
Yeah, so frameworks are important. So Scrum is a framework, and as you know, what the only thing that Scrum builds is your process. It doesn't build any product. And less is a framework. It's my favorite framework for product development
Hmm.
at large scale. And and there are other frameworks that are out there. I don't want to talk about them.
Mhm.
These frameworks, so less and Scrum, for example, they are important because what they give you is they provide you some kind of safety net. So if you're just starting out and you don't really know, what to do, what are the first steps, how to implement, how to become more agile, then these frameworks give you some rules, give you some events, give you
Right.
some roles. They give you a lot of
Mhm.
things you can start even if you're not very experienced yet. You can start and then you can start learning, and that gives you, a good way to start. So I think that frameworks are important in that sense, and Scrum and Less in particular, they leave a lot of open ends. They don't answer of all your questions, and I think that's important also because that encourages an organization to fill in the details themselves,
Mhm.
and that's good because that creates ownership of the process by the people that fill in the details, and that also allows them to tailor it to make it specific for your organization, which is
Mhm.
uh, which is key, super key. I think it's important to mention that it is makes no sense to copy a model from another company and then copy it exactly into your company. That's doesn't make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
And why doesn't it make sense? I can say that too. It's because the value is in the journey that you take from where you are until you arrive at that model. That's where the value lies, because in that journey you will unlearn things that don't work, and you will relearn things that work, and that's how culture changes, right?
Right.
Culture changes because I like the definition of culture. Culture is the way we do things here.
Mhm.
So what are the things we do? What are the things we do? Well, that's the things we learned. So
Exactly.
if you want to change culture, well, let's learn new things. And if you just copy the model, you don't do the learning. So nothing really happens.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you. That was a nice answer for us. Thank you. So, yeah, when we are working with the teams in the change, through the change, we have low performing teams, right? So they ask us to go and work with them as change agents. Okay, there might be different causes of them, but when you first meet with a team that they introduced you, what are the key things that you look for? What do you assess at the first moments for at the first interactions with that teams, Cesario?
Hmm. So the first thing is to show respect
Hmm.
and use the human touch.
Hmm.
So you must really be interested in them, in the teams, but also in the persons in the team. That is key. So you have to build some kind of rapport, some kind of trust relation, that you are there to help them make their life better.
Right.
If they don't believe that, or if they don't respect you because uh, they don't know that you are capable of helping them, that's a problem. So I, s- I should focus first on that, building that, and that can be done by just talking to them, visiting their sessions, having one-on-ones with the
Hmm.
people, or having talks with the team as a whole. Just
Hmm.
understanding, how does the work for you? what are your struggles, what is going okay,
Mhm.
asking all kinds of questions. What would you do if you were the CEO? What would be the first thing you would change? Uh, you know,
Mhm.
maybe leading a retrospective, to get to clarify what's holding them back. Um, um, there are many activities that you can do, and we call them the go see activities.
Mhm.
And in the book, we describe a lot of these activities um,
Mhm.
uh, that you can do. But in the initial steps, it would be observing, showing respect, doing interviews, visiting events, getting data about what's going on, and then after you got all that data, for example, you can say, well, hey team, this is what I saw. This is what I'm seeing you guys do. Do you agree with that? Do you recognize this? Do you
Mhm.
recognize that you have these problems and these issues and these things? And if they then agree with that, and they probably don't, you probably have a conversation on that.
Mhm.
They say, well, you're saying that I was acting like that, but I wasn't acting like that, or you know. But after that conversation, you agree on a set of challenges that they have, and from that you can then build action plan. What can you do to work with them and
Okay.
help them improve? Yeah,
Yeah, you're choosing the coaching stand, as far as I understand, for the beginning, right? To understand what they need. And it
absolutely.
was it was so difficult when we were at COVID-19, right? To
Hmm.
assist them on from the screen. And I read at your book, it was like you had that experience, and when you met with the teams, it was totally different, right?
Yes, absolutely. Online is
Yeah. Online was
very, very hard. Yeah.
exhausting. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So let's look at the questions if there is any. There's some a comment here. May I recommend that Cesario and all of you also took a look at some of the lessons learned from military experience when it comes to linking tactics and strategy to become adaptive and agile under rapidly changing circumstances. That's a very different comment, right?
I think the military, especially the special forces,
Mm-hmm.
and how they coordinate themselves. These are yeah, a very super good example. Not a very popular example because it's military, but it's a very good example of teams
Exactly.
that have a shared goal but operate autonomously. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that comment. Um, in the book, I saw that there's a very different comment from you. There should be not performance appraisal. You made that comment. Can you briefly
Hmm.
explain? Because in Turkey, as coaches, we are discussing it a lot. These
Hmm.
performance approvals and how can an HR department can use that, or what can they do differently to assess the teams or assess organization if an organization trying to be an agile.
Hmm.
What are your
Yes.
recommendations?
The HR component, like what kind of people do we need? So what kind of people? What are the skills and competences of the people that we need to execute this strategy? That's important. So HR can do a lot there by identifying these capabilities, and then start hiring the people that actually fit that. That's one.
Mhm,
Then the second one is how do we reward people?
mhm,
Um, and to make a short summary, traditionally, like in a non-agile organization where teams are not important, teamwork, for example, where multi-skilling is not important,
mhm,
because multi-skilling gives us adaptability. You could have single function career paths. For example,
mhm,
you can be, I don't know, Java developer one, Java developer two, Java developer three, Java architect, Java super architect, and then same for testing, same for marketing, for all these functions.
mhm,
And that's not very helpful in an agile setting if we want teams, you know, people in the teams to be able to help each other because they
Yeah.
chase the same goal. We need to be able to help each other. So if then the performance appraisals is all about, developing a single skill, it is very hard for these people to develop more than one skill. So that's one thing to look at. Another thing is, how can we reward team performance instead of individual performance? Right? How can we tie targets or bonuses, if you have bonuses, to team performance, to group performance maybe, and not so much to individual performance? That's one thing HR can think about and see how that affects, cross functionality in the team and teams cooperating and collaborating. If they don't have these kinds of common KPIs. And then there's the process of evaluating and doing appraisals. The old school way was to say, maybe once a year I will sit with my manager and then we have a discussion about my targets, my personal targets for the next year, and then I write it in a plan, and then I give the plan to HR, and then at the end of the year, or maybe twice a year if I'm lucky, I'll have a conversation and I see, well, you had this plan, what did you do? And this is the feedback I got from your peers, and we have a conversation about my performance. In Agile, this is like not super smart, as in Agile, a lot of things can change in that year. I don't really know what I'm going to work on this year. I don't really know, what kind of skills I would need in detail this year. So making this plan up front is not very useful. So we want the plan, to be updatable, maybe every 6 weeks or maybe every month. And I want feedback and coaching, not every year, but maybe every 4 weeks or every 6 weeks. So maybe I want to have this talk with my manager about how I'm doing and how he can help me more frequently. Another thing, why should I give that document to HR about my plan? It's my plan. I want to be intrinsically motivated to develop myself, and it must be my responsibility to figure out how to do it. HR's responsibility could be just to coach me and manage me and, helping me make the best plan for myself. That's also a change that you can consider. The other one is, it is really, really bad. We just know from research to have a one-on-one appraisal. So if I will appraise you, I will, 65% of my appraisal will depend on how much I see of myself in you. So the more you are like me, the better appraisal you get.
Exactly.
So that's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. Plus, if I am an HR person, I probably don't know the work very well that you are doing. You're highly educated, university, expert. How would I know what you are doing? So the best way to do it, or a way to do it, not the best way, but my preferred way, is to have a social recognition approach where, team members and peers
No problem.
where team members and peers, give input to how they think you are performing relative to others. And that the formal process is only done by HR. Only the formal process, like signing off or determining increase in salary, that part is done by HR.
Yeah, it means that 360 feedback appraisal, right? You're trying to give as a recommendation to us from the teammates of that person
Yeah,
and the
360.
customers. We are not hearing you.
Yeah, I had too much air conditioning.
Okay. 5 minutes.
360 is one way to do it. There are many ways to do it.
Yeah.
The key point is that we want it to be based on social recognition, and not on a manager having a one-on-one with the person.
Mhm.
That's the key difference.
Okay. And not only HR, not only manager, but different people for about, for example, customers that they may have, right?
Yeah, yeah. So their teammates, maybe other teammates which they work with, maybe
Mm. Mhm.
people which they work with. I don't know, once in a while. So you want to have this. Their own input is also important.
Right.
I think I'm very, very good. Of course, I will give myself a 10. But
Yeah.
it's good to hear from others what they think of me. You see, so
We-
this will be then input for a coaching
Mhm.
session, and
Mhm.
you could have those like maybe 6 times a year, so you can do something about it while it is still in the year instead of just hearing it at the end.
Mhm. Mhm.
You
Mhm.
see. And you can have all kinds of techniques. For example, Peter doesn't like me, so he will give me very bad marks. So and you like me a lot. Let's say you will give me very high marks. So maybe we can just ignore these two extreme data
Mm.
points. You see. So
Mhm.
there are
Mhm.
many techniques how to do this, and HR knows how to do this. They studied for this. They know how to do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
Which is a little bit complicated design. So most of the companies are still using old school techniques to assess agile teams, and they make it demotivation in the teams, which we are sorry about it as agile coaches in the companies, which they are trying to change, but HR policies doesn't change. Okay. Thank you, Cesario. I think we are getting out of time, so in 4 minutes. So I think your throat is not going so well. We can stop if you want. Thank you for being with us with your sincere answers and your sharing your experiences. I would like to recommend your course on 6 and 7 November in Berlin again to everyone who wants to participate, and you can reach this recording in social media as I told, and I wish you all the best for everything that you want to do with your book and all the courses you have. Thank you, Cesario,
thank you so much
for
for
being
having
with
me.
us. It
Thank you.
was a pleasure. Thank you.
You
Have a
too.
good night, everyone.
Have a good evening. Thank you. Bye
Have a
bye.
good night. Bye bye. Bye bye.